Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and I'm bringing you the Enhancement Shaman guide for patch 5.4, the final patch of this expansion. Hopefully the Enhancement Shaman is going to live up to its name as being one of the most vicious and furious specs that you can actually get, and by God does it, yeah. A lot of unique styles come into the Enhancement Shaman. They kind of are a far more vicious and much more involved spec than, say, a Frost DK. We are going to be dual wielding. We have an absolute metric shit ton of spells at our disposal. So if you like that really interactive gameplay and you like to focus on your character a hell of a lot more than maybe looking around and enjoying the environment a little bit like I do, then this is actually going to be the spec for you. I will say it's a niche spec. An absolute niche spec is... some people are really going to hate this. Some people are really going to like it, okay? So we're going to talk about all those kind of things. We're going to talk about your talents, we're going to talk about your gemming, and then we're going to talk about, obviously, how you play it and some ways and hints and tips to help you improve your gameplay in the Enhancement Shaman and try and squeeze in those extra few spells that really take you towards the next level of being an Enhancement Shaman. It's not about talents. There's a lot of choice with Enhancement, which is great to see. Love it when there's a lot of choice. I love it when you can be a little bit choosy about what you take, and making choices that fit what you personally prefer actually don't punish you that much, which is very cool. Level 15, Astral Shift, 40% damage reduction, 1.5 minute cooldown, bish bosh, absolutely fantastic. Take it, don't worry about it. Everything else, Windwalk Totem's actually cool for raiding. I've just been goofing off with some Frozen Power while I've been doing some solo play. Testing out different sorts of rhythmic plays, easier to do in solo than it is in a raid. So I've been trying Frozen Power. Either or, not really raid changes unless the raid encounter demands it. Do you need to give people like Hand of Freedom? Then Windwalk Tome is obviously for you. Level 45. Entirely for you. There is a lot of opportunity to use totemic projection, which is why I took it. We actually move our totems quite a lot. I think that's important to realize, is that you want your Searing Totem to be in range, and it's not sort of as easy as a caster where we can be in a nice position in between a lot of mobs and drop a totem down that we can leave up for its full duration. If we're moving around a hell of a lot and we keep moving out of range of our Searing Totem, totemic projection can actually help you out because it's not going to punish you by taking up global cooldowns and whatnot. At level 60, all of these are actually pretty close. A few resources and stuff that I checked. I actually really like Echo the Elements. I don't like Elemental Mastery or Ancestral Swiftness, and I'll explain why. Echo the Elements certainly benefits you more in AoE situations. It tends to be considered for single target to be the worst out of the three, with these two being pretty damn close. However, I do like Echo the Elements. I just like the way it works and it's passive. However, there is an argument to be made for such things like Elemental Mastery, where it's on demand, can kill things. The problem is, it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. Now, we need to sort of bring this up, as this is one of my first sort of gripes, I would say, with Enhancement Shamans. That's something you should be aware of if you're going to roll one and play it. Ascendance has a 3 minute cooldown, okay? So that means that we can line Ascendance and Elemental Mastery up every second Elemental Mastery if we use Elemental Mastery on exact cooldown. Bear in mind, this is important because sometimes we can't do that. Is if we use Elemental Mastery, it's exact cooldown. Every second Elemental Mastery, we can use it with Ascendance. If we don't do that and we delay Elemental Mastery by a certain amount of time, then the overlap won't occur the next time around we get another Ascendance, and maybe we'll have to start losing the benefit of our really stacking up our cooldowns, which can actually be really cool. On top of that, Feral Spirit as well, another cooldown, is actually 2 minutes, which really doesn't work nicely at all with Elemental Mastery. It doesn't work nicely whatsoever. So what you're going to find if you're playing Enhancement, you do take Elemental Mastery, is, sure, great cooldown, absolutely no argument with that, is it tends to be a little bit awkward to line up with your other cooldowns as well, okay? So especially if you're an Orc and you're taking Blood Fury, which I'm sure most of you are rolling Troll for whatever reason, but that's 2 minutes as well, so that doesn't really line up nicely with Elemental Mastery either, which is a crying shame that these sort of talents really don't line up nicely across it. It creates kind of a clunky feel. Something you should definitely just note down if you like to have, especially if you like to macro your cooldowns together. Not really going to pay off for you too nicely with the Enhancement Shaman. Not really at all. Ancestral Swiftness, then your nature spell is instant cast. Yeah, and you get this kind of passive 5% haste and melee haste. It's nice. It's nice if you don't want to deal with the annoyance of Elemental Mastery not lining up. I personally would pick either of these. Elemental Mastery does tend to favour AoE a bit more and is a little bit weaker overall. So it depends again on what the encounter needs. At level 75, Ancestral Guidance is our only choice particularly. A Healing Stream for Enhancement, I tried it a couple of times in a couple of raids. It's bollocks. It's absolutely terrible for enhancement, which is a sad, sad state of affairs. Conductivity, we don't want to heal. We're a DPSer. We do not want to be healing. We don't actively want to be healing. If we do that, our raid is in a pretty bad state of affairs already, and therefore, if we've started to heal, God, it better be important. Therefore, Ancestral Guidance, which is just duplicating our damage into healing, fantastic, generally the only choice. Level 90, now this is where people are going to get all up in arms. I already predict it coming. Let me just prepare my shields up. I choose Unleashed Fury. It's not the best for my gear level. I choose it because, frankly, the Enhancement Shaman rotation, or priority system, which is what it actually is so tight. It is tighter than an Italian waiter's underwear. I'm serious. It's tight as fuck. It's like watching one of those bra adverts. They're ridiculously tight. Unleashed Fury is just passively inclusive of everything I want. It's something I'm using all the time. It works nicely for me, and in fact, it is not that far away from the rest. Not that far away from the rest, so therefore the argument is kind of null and void, as they are very close. Elemental Blast would be better for me at this gear level. My issue is I don't like sliding it in the early stages of the game where you're trying. If you do take Elemental Blast, by the way, which I'm not really going to be talking about in this guidance, it becomes pretty much your #1 priority, and you want at least 1 or 2 stacks of Maelstrom weapon in order to pull that off. Adding another key binding into this spec, I just think it's a waste of life. In my personal opinion, I just don't like adding extra spells to enhancement. I really don't. It's something I particularly don't like about this spec, is adding more spells onto it. So I tend to avoid it. It's not like I can't keybind it. I just don't want to add more onto it. I just can't be bothered. Primal Elementalist is really nice if your timing of the fight, in fact. And what I mean by that is your Elementalist, Primal Elemental, your greater elementals, are in fact on specific timers of when they are useful and when they are not. Depending on how long the fight is, you can actually see some dramatic improvements. If you can get that extra elemental out, then you might see some huge benefits. Personally, for just constant, steady, maintainable DPS lining up with the rest of these cooldowns, I love Unleashed Fury. We're going to be using it every cooldown pretty much. Therefore, we're getting all this benefit of extra static shock. Coming from your Lightning Shield, you're obviously using Lightning Shield as enhancement, and you get all these extra benefits. Because we have both imbues up. We have Flame Tongue weapon on our offhand. We have Wind Fury weapon on our main hand. Therefore, we're going to get a good benefit out of this. I like it. That's the answer. Simple as that. And I recommend it for you while you're learning. Fucking Glyphs are garbage. Pretty garbage. Feral Spirit, I haven't even bothered to change them. I'm going to be switching the spec back very, very quickly. The 2 I recommend is actually Glyph of the Fire Elemental Totem. I think this is pretty cool. It actually helps rotate into our cooldown quite nicely into our burst phases, which adds onto our overall burst. I really, really like the Glyph of Fire Elemental Totem. I would also be taking the Glyph of Chain Lightning. Glyph of Chain Lightning, we're going to be obviously using that in AoE situations, which is absolutely fantastic. And Glyph of Fire Rover. If your ads are fighting something where ads are pretty spread out, you should always bear that in mind. And for single target survivability, Feral Spirit, okay, increasing the healing of Feral Spirit and such and such. Also worth noting the Grounding Totem. A lot of people like banging on about this. I actually think it's a little bit of a diva type glyph. By that I mean someone somewhere found it kind of useful, and now it's like, well, I use the Glyph of Grounding Totem to increase my DPS. And overall, in general, it's not actually that great. A lot of people bang on about it. I don't particularly like it. Healing Storm. Again, you're going to have to be throwing heals in with your Maelstrom weapon. I don't like it. Great for leveling. It's a leveling glyph. Let's face facts. This is a leveling glyph. It's not really for raiding. If I was raiding, I would certainly be taking Fire Elemental Totem. I'd probably take Fire Nova and probably Chain Lightning. I would probably swap Fire Elemental maybe towards Feral Spirit, or maybe the Chain Lightning if I was just doing straight up single target to get the Feral Spirit in as well. Just for that extra healing, comes in handy. Let's talk about gearing. Talk about that gearing. We're going for heavy mastery. Now, there's some people who'll be like, no, you should wait for a certain gear level to go, and you should be gemming agility. What I want to say is if you're up to like Throne of Thunder LFR-ish level, which is very early on, you're actually going to see some dramatic, you're not going to be in that situation where you need to be thinking about agility. You're going to be heading towards mastery, okay? It's that easy to do. Very, very early on in your gearing life cycle, especially if you're doing sort of the timeless aisle, where you're picking up lots of free gear, agility isn't going to be that big a concern to you at all, and you're going to be gemming for a lot of mastery. You're going to be picking up things like expertise mastery. All you care about in terms of your gemming is as much mastery as you can get and helping you get that hit and expertise cap much, much sooner. Your hit and expertise is always your number one priority, guys. If you don't make contact with your spells, it's a lot of wasted damage. So you're going to be looking to get a lot of hit and expertise and mastery, and that's about it. So your gemming will be easy. Expertise, mastery, straight up mastery in your yellow slots and so on and so forth. Hit mastery in those blue slots. Simple as that. We're not gemming for haste in any way, crit or anything like that. We're just getting as much mastery on as possible, which is just a flat out DPS increase. There is also an argument to gem pure haste. You shouldn't see too much of a difference if you go for a lot of haste. What I will say is this, don't half-arse it. Don't go for half mastery, half haste. I prefer mastery overall because I'm pretty cool at keeping everything on cooldown and I'm happy with that. If you're going towards more haste, you might be a little bit more forgiving. You might get slightly less damage. Just don't half-arse it. Don't be like, oh, well, I want this amount of haste and I want this amount of mastery. No, go either full mastery or go full haste, okay? Simple as that. In terms of your weapons, guys, whatever is your hardest hitting weapon goes in your main hand. Whatever is your softer weapon goes in your offhand. Simple as that. Our weapons are always 2.6 speed agility weapons. Therefore, the better weapon, main hand, offhand, weaker weapon. Simple as that. Wind Fury, main hand, Flame Tongue, offhand. Little tip, some people don't know this. If you fuck up your weapon abuse and you accidentally click Flame Tongue first and then Wind Fury, that can be a pain in the ass because your main hand now has Flame Tongue on it. You just click them off up here. A lot of people ask me this. I'm surprised you guys don't know. Just get rid of your weapon abuse. They're actually buffs on your character. Get rid of them, then do it again, okay? I see people trying to spam click one to try and get it to overwrite. Doesn't work that way. Whichever one you click first will go on your main hand, offhand, and so on and so forth. Okay. Rotation. You're going to need an add-on for this. Some people will argue this. Don't hate me. I'm just recommending this for any new player who wants to pick up Enhancement. You're going to need some kind of add-on for this, okay? I recommend Tell Me When. Shock and Awe. I tried that out for a couple of raids. I actually thought it was pretty decent. It had a lot of information I didn't particularly need, or other add-ons I was doing already had that information. Let's go through the spells you're going to be using. You ready? We're going to be using Storm Trike. We're going to be using Flame Shot. We're going to be using Lava Lash. We're going to be using Lightning Shield. We're going to be using Earth Shot. We're going to use Feral Spirit. We're going to use Fire Elemental Totem. We're going to use Lightning Bolt. We're going to use Chain Lightning. We're going to use Fire Nova. We're going to use Searing Totem. We're going to use Magma Totem. We're going to use Elemental Mastery. We're going to use Ascendance. We're going to use Feral Spirit. We're also going to use... I always forget the name of this damn thing. What is it called? Stormlash? Stormlash, yeah. We're going to be using Stormlash Totem as well. What does that mean? And Unleash Elements. Can't forget that, and Unleash Elements. On top of what our raid buffs are, such as your Windwalk Totem, your Conductivity. What does that translate to is we have an awful lot of fucking spells. And Healing Tide Totem. I can't forget the Healing Tide Totem. We have an awful lot of spells. And this gets confusing for a lot of people, because some of them actually interact with barely any ability to fuck it up. And if you make a mistake, it's kind of hard to recover from. Right, so let's simplify this for everybody so what you're doing. Your first and foremost priority is to have a fire totem down. In general, that's going to be either Searing Totem or your Fire Elemental Totem, okay? Let me get in combat so I'll show you this here. You should be tracking this in some form. So you can see on my Tell Me When, I have my Fire Elemental Totem down. He's up for 22 seconds. And you need to be paying attention to how long this totem lasts. Because this is important because it gives you this buff called Searing Flames. Flame Tongue attack damage increased by 40%. Okay? Contributes to your Lava Lash. Makes your Lava Lash hit very hard. You can see it consumed all the 5 stacks of the Searing Flames. And when I Lava Lash, when it comes back, let me put a Flame Shot back on. You see, Lava Lash there. When I Lava Lash, it uses them all up. And therefore it does a shitload more damage. And then it starts building back up again. When that runs out, you need to have your Searing Totem down. Get in combat again. And you need to be tracking the timer on that. So number one priority... a fire totem, whichever is available at the time. Fire elemental is obviously doing more damage. You want to use that immediately. Then Searing Totem in between. Okay, as simple as that. Your next priority is to have Flame Shock on the target as much as possible. Now, you need to use this Flame Shock with Unleashed Elements. Okay, so you will go Unleashed Elements, Flame Shock, and now you have an Unleashed Elements buffed Flame Shock on the target. Now that needs to be maintained 100%. That's priority number 2. Your next priority is Lava Lash. Lava Lash with the 5 stack of that Searing Flames buff that you saw before. Okay. Then Lightning Bolt with your Maelstrom weapon. Now, that Lightning Bolt can be used with less stacks of Maelstrom weapon, but that's only if all your other spells are on cooldown and you're not doing anything. You will run into these weird periods where everything comes off cooldown and then you have a couple of seconds where you don't have to do anything. So again, Unleashed Elements, Flame Shock, Lava Lash, Lightning Bolt if it's procced at 5 stacks. If not, you're going to use your Earth Shock. That's a Lightning Bolt. And then you're going to use your Storm Strike. Okay? Now, the way I've done this on my screen is it goes left to right. Now, the trick to this is, a couple of tricks to this, guys. You can squeeze in an Unleashed Elements, especially if you have used your Unleashed Fury, in between the time it takes to replace your Flame Shock. You can see the way it's just about to run out. Unleashed Elements has just come back off cooldown, which means if you use your Unleashed Elements on cooldown, you will be fine to use one in between each Flame Shock. If you, for some reason, randomly delay your Unleashed Elements, you want to be saving it for that Flame Shock. Very important. Very important, okay? So you want to be using Unleashed Elements on cooldown. Similarly, with that going forward, shocks. You can squeeze in, I believe it is 4 Earth Shocks in between the time it takes you. That's the second Earth Shock. In between the time it takes you to refresh your Flame Shock. It might actually be 3. There's another shock. Ooh, wait for it. That's 3 Earth Shocks we've fitted in. 4. Yeah, it is 4. You can fit in 4 Earth Shocks in between the time it takes you to refresh your Flame Shock. You see, it's just about to run out. Unleashed Elements and refreshed it. That means there is a priority got to be given to shocks and Unleashed Elements. Just count, and it's not... excuse me. You need to bear in mind that your shock has a 6-second cooldown, and you should be tracking how long Flame Shock has. If it's at like 5 seconds and you're thinking about squeezing in that extra Earth Shock, don't. Wait, your Flame Shock is far more important, as are your other spells, okay? But if you're playing very... This is why it gets complicated for newer players. If you're playing very tight to the fist, so I'm going Lava Lash, Storm Strike, Lightning Bolt, Shock coming off cooldown, use on cooldown, and then you get this weird period where you don't really do anything, and then your Storm Strike's coming back, Lava Lash, I want to use that Shock immediately, I want to get that Unleashed Elements off cooldown, Lightning Bolt, nice, then my Storm Strike's coming back, then that other Shock's coming back, use that, and you can see this is a very busy spec. Now my Flame Shock's coming to that point where it's off cooldown, delayed, because Unleashed Elements is about to come back. Unleashed Elements, Flame Shock back on, then using the Lightning Bolt. Very strict priority system, guys. Have a system that's showing you what to do. Slot in your cooldowns in between. Those are your Fire Elemental Tome, your Ascendance, your Stormlash Tome, your Feral Spirit, your Elemental Mastery. All these things need to be slotted in the meantime. That is your single target DPS. Have a system. I go left to right on my Tell Me When. Simple as that. So it goes like Unleash Elements, Lava Lash, Storm Strike. I track my totems. And I track my shocks. This tracks just Flame Shock, because if Flame Shock's off cooldown, so is Earth Shocks. As simple as that. Really, really easy. AoE, this is where the fun happens, alright? Enhancement has an absolutely amazing way of doing AoE, and it's reliant on a couple of things, which kind of makes it a little bit weaker. So Lava Lash actually spreads your Flame Shock. It's too far away, you motherfucker. Okay, so your Lava Lash, I should have showed the tooltip. It's easier than doing this. It's easier than doing it that way. Your Lava Lash. You charge your offhand weapon with lava, inflict daily 345% of that weapon's damage to an enemy target, and spreading your Flame Shock to the target up to enemies within 12 yards. Those are within 12 yards. Why don't you spread? Git. Sad. Not spreading. Whatever. I don't care. Within 12 yards. Damage is increasing by 40% if your offhand weapon is enchanted with Flame Tongue. As you said, that's why our weapon imbue has that Flame Tongue on it. When everything has Flame Shock on it, now I can actually manually spread this because I'm really frustrated that it's not spreading. Someone's going to point out why it's not doing it. I honestly have absolutely no idea. So we've got a couple of Flame Shocks on. We then have a new priority. Yeah, another spell. This is Fire Nova, and this is where things get really cool. I mean, really cool. Fire Nova detonates. Let's read what it does. Ignites your Flame Shock spell on any nearby enemies, causing each of them to emit a wave of flames that deals 11,000 damage, not a lot of damage, bear in mind, to every target. You detonate them. Now, this is cool because if you have a lot of ads, you can detonate everything. Now, there is some spectacular moments that can come from this. Very spectacular moments. You also know that Fire Nova has a very short, very short cooldown, okay? It's just 4 seconds. This becomes your #1 priority along with Unleashed Elements in order to detonate all these Flame Shocks. Okay, you're going to be spreading your Flame Shock around, detonating them on cooldown. Your Fire Nova becomes a huge priority because it does so much damage. Because each of those Flame Shocks is going to hit every other target all the damn time. Mix it with Unleashed Elements, you're going to start seeing some crazy crazy AoE damage, and that's where it's a hell of a lot of fun. As soon as you have more than one target in front of you, you're going to switch up to obviously include Chain Lightning, and you're going to start Fire Novering. The more adds, the more priority you give to your Fire Nova. Tell you, if you've never tried Enhancement Shaman, give it a whirl just to see what happens when you spread that Flame Shock around with that Lava Lash and you start AoEing, because it's always good. Always good. Right, I'm going to show you some gameplay of all this in action. It's been a relatively long guide. There's a lot to explain. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye.